Hello. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny, and this is a place where I like to talk about all things murdery. Today, I'd like to visit an older series that I fell in love with a decade or so ago, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I first read The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy approximately circa 2010. So my estimate on that is based on the fact that I own the first two books in paperback and the third book in hardcover. I also own the 3 Swedish movies, which were released around the same time on DVD. The American movie was released in 2011, and there is one aspect of the movie that I found so unforgivable that I did not purchase it. So I can't show you a physical copy of that one. So the original Millennium series trilogy consisted of 3 books written by Stieg Larsson. The books were written and set in Sweden. What we know now as The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was originally released in Sweden with a title of Men Who Hate Women. One of my favorite lines in the American version of the movie, which was spoken by Daniel Craig's Mikael Blomkvist, is, "I need you to help me catch a killer of women." That sums the book up. So the opening scene of both the movies and of the book features an elderly man, who we later learn is Henrik Wenger, opening a framed pressed flower wrapped in brown paper. This may seem innocent enough, but what we will come to learn is that for nearly 40 years, he has been receiving these anonymously in the mail on his birthday. He has no idea who is sending them, but he believes they're a taunt from the person who killed his beloved niece, Harriet. Harriet disappeared in the 60s with no trace as what happened to her. So The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo features 2 primary lead characters, Mikael Blomkvist and Lisbeth Salander. We learn in the opening foray that Mikael is an elite financial journalist who just lost a libel suit against Swedish mogul Hans-Erik Wennerström. Work with me on my Swedish pronunciations. This loss not only hurt Blomkvist financially, but much more importantly, severely undermines his reputation as a trusted journalist. So here he finds himself broke and unemployed. Next, we get to meet Lisbeth Salander. Lisbeth works for a security firm that also does private investigations, and she has been hired to do a background report on Blomkvist. Salander originally presents herself right out of the gate as a skinny goth girl covered in tattoos, spiky hair, black makeup, and demonstrating antisocial behavior. Get the picture here. But despite appearances, it's clear she's a brilliant and thorough researcher. The man who has hired the firm to do the research on Blomkvist is a representative of Henrik Wenger. Now in his 80s, it's Henrik's final wish, now that he's approaching the end of his life, to find out what happened to Harriet. It's his belief that somebody in the Wenger family murdered her and has been torturing him for almost 40 years about it. So that's the general opening foray of the book and of both of the movies. I can't tell you too much more because this book has a great plot twist and you want to read or see it for yourself. So let's talk book versus movies. I've watched both the Swedish and the American movies several times over the last years since they originally came out, but this is the first time that I've reread the book. My friend Dan strong-armed me into reading the book originally back 2010-ish, and now I'm remembering all of the things that I liked and didn't like about the book. So I think the biggest bummer about the book is that it's super dense. I like detail, but this goes way overboard. There are scenes in the book discussing the history of the Wenger family all the way back to the 1600s. You'll know in detail everything that the characters are eating, all the books that they have on their shelves, etc. So it feels to me a little like when the author was developing his characters, he wrote out extensive character profiles and just plopped those right down into the book. So help me understand these characters without having to list every book that they have on their shelves for me to understand them. I will say this time, instead of reading the physical book, that this time I listened to it in audiobook form, and I do feel like that helped a little bit. The book really doesn't pick up speed until Lisbeth joins forces with Mikhail, and that doesn't happen until almost halfway through. So then once that happens though, trust me, you will not be able to put this book down. So 2 more books and Swedish movies fill out the original Millennium trilogy. That's The Girl Who Played with Fire and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. So while The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is primarily focused on solving the mystery of what the heck happened to Harriet Wenger, the second 2 books are much more focused on what the heck happened to Lisbeth Salander. So you'll find yourself asking the question, what happened to Lisbeth and how did she end up here? Although I haven't reread the second 2, I will be prepared to argue that they move a little bit faster than the first one. So I did rewatch the full Swedish trilogy, yes, in Swedish with English subtitles, as well as the American version. And when I went into this, I was prepared to love the Swedish version and hate on the American version, because honestly, that's how I remember it, or how I remember feeling. But now my feelings have at least partially changed. So the Swedish version includes a cast that many American viewers may or may not know too well, though our lead character does feature Noomi Rapace as Elizabeth Salander. Her first English-speaking role was in Sherlock Holmes' Game of Shadows, alongside Robert Downey Jr. She also had a role in Amazon's series Jack Ryan, starring John Krasinski. So you may have seen her and just not known who she was. So Swedish actor Michael Nyqvist takes on the role of Mikael Blomkvist, and you may recall him as the villains in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol and in John Wick. So here, I was going to show you these pictures. So every time I see Noomi in another role, I yell, Lisbeth! I just love her. So there you go. That's who they are. So my main complaint about the Swedish version is that as dense as the books were, they oversimplified the movies a little too much. One of the big subplots in the book is the fight between Mikael Blomkvist and Hans-Erik Wennerström. The movie opens early on with the court case where Blomkvist is being convicted of libel, but then it's barely discussed again. So if you only watch the movie and don't have the context from the book, you'll never know what happened. There are other pieces that are left out, including a few romances that Blomkvist has with members, I'm going to use the word that plural there, of the Wenger family, and an important sequence with a local cat. However, I do still think that it's a good movie and sticks pretty well to the storyline that had been laid out in the book. That takes us over to the American version, though. So the American version stars Daniel Craig as Mikael Blomkvist, Mara Rooney as Lisbeth Salander, and Christopher Plummer, who I love, as Henrik Wenger. We also see Goran Visnik, Robin Wright, and Stellan Skarsgård in supporting roles. If you don't know their names offhand, trust me, you would know who they were if you saw them. This movie is a bit meatier in its content and keeps in, at least in part, not all, but in part, some of the pieces I missed in the Swedish version. I also love Mara Rooney as Lisbeth. I don't mind saying that Lisbeth Salander is, no question, one of my favorite literary characters. I love a strong female lead, and she is completely badass. So a poor casting decision here would have been the end of the movie for me. I would not have been able to get past that. But both Noomi Rapace and Mara Rooney did Lisbeth justice in my eyes. So what is my complaint about the American version of the movie? Why do I remember having such a negative reaction? Well, without going into any detail, because I don't want to spoil anything here, they changed the ending of the damn story. I went to see this movie in the theater with my boyfriend and with a good friend of mine. My friend had also read the book, so we had to try our best not to be too annoyingly reactive. There's nothing worse than going to see a movie and going, that didn't happen in the books. I know it's annoying. But there did come a point at the end where they had changed something so unforgivably, in my opinion, that my friend and I both sat up, mouths hanging open. So not only am I super salty that they made this change, but I don't believe the change was necessary. I have absolutely no idea why they made this change. And over a decade later, I'm still mad about it. And no, I'm not going to let it go. So the film did receive an Academy Award for Best Film Editing, and Rooney was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. I will be honest, I have no idea why the woman playing the girl with the dragon tattoo in a movie called The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was only considered a supporting actress and not a lead actress. Either way, I repeat that I have no beef whatsoever with the acting in this movie, but I will just never get over the way that they changed the ending. Bitter party of one. I cannot let it go. So I do want to warn everyone up front, in the book and in both movies, there are a few rape scenes, one of which is particularly gritty and graphic. I have no problem telling you that I skip over them every time, but I'm able to skip over them because I know where they are. I know they're coming. So I can. If this is a big trigger for you, please beware. It is not, if you think it's coming, just skip. You know what's happening. So the Swedish series is currently streaming on Amazon Prime, and the American version is included in the basic Hulu plan. So you should be able to find it if you have some good streaming services. So the story of Lisbeth Salander was continued in a second trilogy. However, books 4 through 6 were written by David Lagerkrantz. And this is because the original trilogy was published after the original author, Stieg Larsson, died suddenly of a heart attack in 2004 at the age of 50. Huge bummer. I have read at least books 4 and 5. I might have read book 6 and I just can't remember. I did like them, but while they were a lot less dense and easy to read, I also felt like they lacked the heart of Lisbeth and certainly the suspense factor. There was another attempt at an American movie matching the name of book 4. That was The Girl in the Spider's Web. The movie appears to have been a conglomeration of at least books 4 and 5, if not books 4 through 6, like they just mushed them together. The movie starred Claire Foy. She's best known for playing young Queen Elizabeth II in Netflix's series The Crown. As Lisbeth Salander, and no offense to her as a person, but just no, she was a pretty good young Queen Elizabeth, but she lacked all of Lisbeth Salander. I realize saying Queen Elizabeth and Lisbeth is tough, but she lacked all of Lisbeth's grit, and sometimes she even came across kind of whiny. So the second trilogy just never received the attention or the accolades that the original trilogy did, and frankly, I kind of think that's for a good reason. So, to sum up, you should read the book, at least listen to the audio version before taking a crack at both movies. Given that you can grab the audiobook for free on Libby without having to wait, and also you can stream both sets of movies pretty easily online, I think you should give them a crack. Check them out. So, check them out. Let me know. Compare them for yourselves. So, did you read the books? And did you see the movies? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and let's talk about books, movies, and murdery things. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and as always, have fun, be safe, and don't murder anyone.